Sometimes the biggest sign that you're growing, healing, and coming home to yourself is that you start realizing you feel genuinely happier single than in a relationship. And if you're watching this because that sentence hit something deep, trust me, you are not alone. So many people step into a new phase of life where solitude feels safer, where emotional peace becomes non-negotiable, and where connection stops being about filling a void and starts being about something meaningful. Today, we're exploring the psychology behind it, the science behind your emotional patterns, and the 10 subtle but powerful signs that you're genuinely happier single than in a relationship. And as we go through this, just notice what resonates with your experience. I'm the Intimacy Doctor, real talk, real science, real intimacy, and this channel is all about helping you understand yourself, your relationships, and the way you connect on a deeper emotional level. The interesting thing is that people often assume wanting to be single means you're avoiding love, avoiding commitment, or avoiding vulnerability. But relationship science tells a different story. Many people genuinely flourish in singlehood because they've reached a point where their emotional needs, boundaries, and self-worth feel more stable without the complexities of a relationship. When you understand how communication patterns, attachment styles, trust, intimacy, and emotional connection shape your well-being, you start to understand why some people thrive in independence. So let's just walk through these signs together, gently, compassionately, without judgment, because whether you're single, dating, or healing, this is really about self-awareness. One of the first signs you're happier single is that peace feels more valuable to you than companionship. You know those moments in past relationships where you constantly had to manage someone's moods, interpret someone's words, or walk on emotional eggshells. When the nervous system feels stressed more often than soothed, the body memorizes it. Studies on emotional regulation show that the brain becomes conditioned to associate relationships with anxiety instead of connection. So when you finally experience the quiet of being on your own, it doesn't feel lonely, it feels like oxygen. You protect your peace because you remember what it felt like when it was constantly threatened. And if that resonates with you, ask yourself, when was the last time you felt truly relaxed in a relationship? Or has your calm been easier to access when it's just you? Share your thoughts in the comments, because I'm curious how many of you learned peace only after leaving chaos. Another powerful sign is that you've built a life that actually feels full without needing a partner to complete it. There's a difference between being alone and being fulfilled. Relationship psychology calls this self-expansion through autonomy, meaning you grow through your own habits, your goals, your routines, and your internal world. Maybe you've discovered new hobbies, built friendships with more emotional depth, or found purpose in your career. Maybe you've invested in your emotional health, learned communication skills, practiced self-compassion, or healed old patterns that once led you into relationships just for validation. There's something beautiful and scientifically supported in the idea that building a life you love actually makes future relationships healthier. Because you stop choosing from scarcity, you start choosing from strength. If this idea resonates, hit the like button so more people can find this kind of content. A third sign is that your standards have evolved in a way that makes you unwilling to settle. Not out of arrogance, not out of coldness, but out of clarity. Emotional intelligence often increases after heartbreak or after a toxic cycle ends. You become more aware of how trust, communication, emotional safety, and reciprocal effort should feel. You stop romanticizing bare minimum behavior. You stop excusing emotional unavailability. You stop negotiating your self-worth. Relationship science tells us that people who have gone through periods of growth often develop secure solitude, meaning they can be alone without feeling deprived. So you realize you'd rather stay single than be with someone who can't meet you where you are emotionally. Let me ask you, do you feel like your standards went up after a past relationship? And if so, what changed the most for you? Another sign you're genuinely happier single is that you no longer feel the pressure to rush intimacy. You're not scrambling to define things. You're not bending your emotional boundaries to keep someone interested. And you're definitely not giving someone access to your heart just because they gave you attention. You start to understand that intimacy, real intimacy, is not just physical closeness. It's feeling understood. It's emotional connection. It's trust. It's consistency over intensity. When you're happier single, the craving shifts. It's not, I want someone now. It becomes, I want someone right. You want someone who listens, someone who communicates, someone who values you, someone who doesn't drain your emotional energy, someone who cares, and until then, you're comfortable waiting. Another subtle but important sign is that you enjoy making decisions without emotional compromise. Singlehood offers a level of freedom many people underestimate. The freedom to choose your schedule, your priorities, your goals, your social life, your quiet time, and your healing pace. Studies on autonomy show that personal decision-making increases well-being, especially for people who have spent years in relationships where they adapted too much. Maybe you spent years caretaking. Maybe you absorbed someone else's emotions. Maybe you lost pieces of yourself trying to make a relationship work. When you finally reclaim your independence, every decision feels like a homecoming. Every no feels empowering. Every boundary feels like self-protection instead of conflict. If you relate to that feeling of taking your life back, let me know in the comments. Another sign is that you've become more emotionally self-aware. Emotional intelligence grows in periods of solitude because you have the space to reflect without external influence. You learn how to self-soothe. You learn how to identify your emotional triggers. You learn how to communicate with yourself, something most people never actually practice. You start healing attachment wounds, maybe shifting from anxious patterns to secure ones. You start noticing how your body responds to red flags. Your intuition gets louder. Your inner voice gets clearer. And because of that, unhealthy relationships become easier to spot and much easier to walk away from. That clarity is powerful. Something else that shows you're happier single is that loneliness no longer scares you. People think being single equals being lonely, but that's not the reality for emotionally mature adults. Research on solitude shows that loneliness is not the absence of people. It's the absence of emotional connection. And you can feel lonely even in a relationship, especially if the emotional bond is weak. When you're truly happier single, you learn how to comfort yourself, how to enjoy your own company, how to stay grounded without external reassurance. Silence doesn't feel empty. It feels restorative. Time alone doesn't feel like punishment. It feels like nourishment. And that's something many people never get to experience because they rush from one relationship to the next without ever meeting themselves. Another sign is that your relationships, not just romantic ones, become healthier. Your friendships deepen. Your boundaries with family improve. You communicate more clearly. You choose people who reciprocate. You stop people pleasing. When you're happier single, you naturally build a support system based on authenticity instead of survival. And this is important. People who learn to love themselves in solitude often make the best partners later. Because they don't cling, they don't control, they don't demand someone else fill their emotional gaps. They come into relationships whole, not half. Another sign you're happier single is that your future vision no longer relies on a relationship to feel complete. You picture travel plans, career goals, personal growth, hobbies, financial stability, all without needing a partner to make it real. If a relationship happens, great. But it's not the foundation of your future. You become the foundation of your future. Relationship science shows that people who are intrinsically motivated, meaning they get happiness from personal fulfillment, experience more stable emotional patterns than those who rely heavily on external validation. So in a way, your single season is strengthening your emotional baseline. And one more sign, maybe the most important, is that you finally feel like yourself. You're not performing, you're not shrinking, you're not adjusting your personality to stay lovable. You're not suppressing your needs. You're living in a way that feels aligned with who you truly are. And when that becomes your norm, you stop entering relationships just because you're afraid of being alone. You start entering relationships only when someone feels like an addition to your peace, not an escape from your loneliness. So, as you reflect on these signs, I want to ask you, does being single bring out the best version of you right now? Not forever, not permanently, just right now. Does independence feel healthier than compromise? Do you feel more emotionally grounded on your own? Share your thoughts below. I would love to hear your experience. And if something in this video spoke to you, even in a small way, hit that like button so more people can find this conversation. And if you're new here, I hope this gave you some clarity, comfort, or language for what you're feeling. I'm the Intimacy Doctor, real talk, real science, real intimacy. And if you want more videos on emotional intelligence, intimacy, communication, relationship advice, and how to build deeper, healthier connections, then make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We have so many important conversations coming up. And if you want a smooth next step, watch the next video on how to build emotional security within yourself. Because once you understand the science of self, worth, and connection, the way you choose relationships transforms completely.